How did Harry get down the hill? Walking. JK. Rolling. Hi everyone, this month I read 15 books, so I'm just gonna hop on into it. The first book I read this month is The Iron Trial by Holly Black and Cassandra Clare. This is one of the books I have a review for, so you should go check it out if you want to know about it in detail. But basically it's about a kid who takes a test to see if he is worthy of becoming an apprentice to a master at a magic school. Long story short, he gets in and it's about him training in his life there. I thought it was very cool. I thought it was really fast-paced. There took a couple of twists that I didn't expect. It was a little bit, you could tell it's middle grade. It was a tiny bit cheesy sometimes. But overall, I think it's a really solid beginning to a new middle grade series, and I will be continuing on, and I love this cover, and the characters were hilarious. I gave this 4 stars. The next book I read for school, and that is The Tempest by Shakespeare. I read this book in one night, and I actually really enjoyed it. This is one of Shakespeare's last plays, and I think it's a comedy. It's just about a shipwreck, and there's magic, and I really don't think you care about Shakespeare, so I'll just say I gave this 3 stars. And I got a 90 on the test, so... The next book I read was one that's not on my TBR, but I enjoyed it nonetheless, and that was My Name is Mina by David Almond. I picked this up randomly in a store one day, not knowing whatsoever. This is actually a prequel to a different series. I just got it because it's done in, like, diary entries, and there's such cool, like, text like this, and it's so neat. I enjoyed it because of that, and I liked the story, but something about learning that it was a prequel kind of brought it down for me. I'm not going to be picking up the series that this goes with. I liked the stream of consciousness, I liked her thoughts, I don't know. It was pretty. I gave it 4 stars. The next book I read was actually an arc that comes out in March. I'm not sure if my review for this is posted yet, but it should be coming soon. This is Everything That Makes You by Mariah McStay. This book's about a girl named Fiona who has a scar going down half her face that she got as a child, and it's about her life having to deal with this deformity, and it's also told in dual perspective with a girl named Fee, who is basically Fiona in an alternate universe who does not have the scar. Overall, I thought this was a really neat idea, except I feel like it wasn't executed very well. It got kind of boring. I couldn't really see how they related, but it was definitely memorable. Like, I do recommend this book because there's kind of a twist that you don't see coming, and even though there were lots of little problems that I was able to pick out in this, it was still overall a really touching book. I gave this 3.5 stars. The next book I read I pulled from my TBR jar, and that is Not a Drop to Drink by Mindy McGinnis. I went into this book with very low expectations because I've heard it's okay, I've heard it's not very fast-paced, but I love this book. This is a post-apocalyptic book about a world where there's not a lot of water, and this girl lives by this lake and she has to protect this lake water with her life, and it's about her life and her mom. It is so good. It's a very realistic survival post-apocalyptic story. The main character is very strong. It's not romance-based, but there is a male character in it. It's just such a really great post-apocalyptic novel. So if you're looking for an action-packed book that has awesome characters in it, this I definitely recommend to you. Also, this is a series, but it's a companion series, so this works really well as a standalone. Really loved this. I gave it 4.5 stars. The next book I read was also from my TBR jar. This is probably the thing I was most excited to read, and that is All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. This is a book that takes place in World War II. It's in dual perspective between a blind girl in France and a little boy in Germany who gets taken up by the Nazi party because he's very smart and knows how to fix things, like, mechanically, not the economy. It's about their stories and how they intertwine in the end. I went into this book with huge expectations, and ultimately it was kind of let down. I'm not saying this is a horrible book because I definitely enjoyed the writing, and I just thought it was so touching, but I feel like it was a bit slow. Actually, that's pretty much the only thing I have against this, is that there's really for a World War II book, it's not like bombs going off and all this stuff happening. I thought it was so cool because of the characters. It's a very character-driven story, and I loved the characters, which is what made it so great. If you're a fan of World War II books, this is definitely one to check out. I thought it was really beautiful. I gave it 4.5 stars. The next book I read is also an ARC. It's Solitaire by Alice Oseman. If you live in the UK, you might have heard of this because it was published there. Now it's coming over to the US. This book follows a girl named Tori who's kind of not a social outcast, but she likes to be alone, and she's kind of depression-y. One day at school, she discovers this blog called Solitaire, and the gist of Solitaire is that it's a person or group of people you don't really know who's just pulling pranks on the school. They start out very harmless, but it turns into something that no one expected, and she has to stop it. Along the way, she's making friends and dealing with her feelings. I thought it was a really well-constructed story. It was written by someone who, like, has a blog and is young, and so it's very realistic. I have a review for this coming up soon, so I will link that down below if you want to know more. I gave this book, I don't know, what did I give it? 4 stars. The next book I read is No One Else Can Have You by Kathleen Hale. This is a book about a girl who lives in a small town and her best friend is found brutally murdered, and the cops in the town kind of immediately blame it on this one person that they suspect it was, but after reading her friend's journal, she realizes her friend might have some secrets that need to be explored, so she takes it upon herself to kind of solve the mystery all the way because the cops are being kind of lazy about it. I thought this was a really great mystery. I know a lot of people have things against Kathleen Hale because of the whole stalking article. I gave this 4 stars because I knocked off a star due to it being a little bit unrealistic. I think if you can separate author from work, you would really enjoy this because it's a really well-written, funny, yet interestingly weird book. The next book I read is by far my favorite of the month, and you might have seen my Goodreads or Twitter while I was reading this. I was a mess. It has taken me like 3 years to read this book because I've tried reading it twice, and both times I set it down because I was bored, but this month I discovered that audiobooks are a thing, and they're now my friend, and I listened to this book on audio while I was knitting a scarf, which I will now put on because I am proud of it. So I read The Book Thief. Glory, glory, hallelujah. I spent 11 hours in one weekend listening to this book, and first of all, the narrator of this is flawless, sassy British man who can do a German accent perfectly. I was honestly gonna give this book 4 stars because I did feel like it was a little bit long-winded, and I was like, but let's talk about the ending of this book. I'm putting it down so I remember I was sitting on my bed listening to my audiobook and knitting, and the end happened, and I had to put my knitting down. I was sobbing so hard, and then I had to stop the audiobook because I was sobbing so hard. Never in my life have I cried so hard reading a book. I cried laying in bed after turning off the audiobook for like 20 minutes, not even having read the epilogue yet. It was so sad. Okay, so now that we have that finished, yeah, basically the saddest book I've ever read in my entire life. I don't want to talk about it. Gave this book 5 stars, probably favorite book of 2015. I have no idea. I'm putting it down now. Also taking off this scarf. Isn't it nice? I knit this all by myself. After that, I was like, wow, what are books? So I decided to read something kind of light and fluffy, and that was Paper or Plastic by Vivi Barnes. This book is from Entangled Teen, and I do have a review posted for this. It's about a girl who gets caught shoplifting, and instead of that going on her record, the store offers for her to work there over the summer, so that's how she gets stuck with a job equivalent to working at Walmart, and it's about her job and her cute boss there and having to deal with different family issues alongside that, and I thought it was a really great contemporary, actually. I just thought the relationship was a little bit shallow, and I wish some loose ends could have been tied up better, but overall, I would recommend this if you're looking for a cute contemporary, and if you work in retail, I think you'd get a kick out of this. And at that point, I had finished all of the books that I had on my TBR, so I was just kind of like, alright, let's go for it. Let's just read something random. So I read Where Things Come Back by Joan Corey Whaley. This book is about a boy whose brother disappears. That's all I'm going to tell you because 1, not much happens, and 2, it's a really good book to kind of go into, like, what to expect. I don't know. I thought this book was so beautifully written, and I love how dynamic the characters were, but my main issue with it was that there was really no direction to it. I didn't feel like that much happened in it. The last 30 pages got really, really intense, but other than that, I just didn't really see the significance of any of the events occurring, and I wasn't bored, I just didn't know what we were doing, and it was definitely a character-based book, but the characters were just kind of sitting around. So I thought this book was pretty, I just wished more had happened. I gave it 4 stars. Then I participated in the Novel Bunch read-along for Cress by Marissa Meyer. We did a live show over this the other day, so I'll link that down below if you want to see our little thoughts about this book. But I listened to this on audio also. I read about half of it, listened to the other half. I'm kind of meh about the Lunar Chronicles. I think they're really cool. I like how they're set in sci-fi, but there's still, like, fantastical elements because of the fairy tales. My favorite character was Cinder, so now that we're getting companion books that still incorporate the past characters, I just wish we could get more Cinder. I don't know, I have very mixed thoughts about this, so long story short, I liked it. It's just, I'm not the biggest fan of the series. I gave it 4 stars. It's good. My only problem with this is characters, and there's just like lots of little things. The next book I read, is a DNF. I did not finish this one. This is Your Body's My Prison by Oksana Leslie. I was sent this book for review, and I started it not knowing if I would like it or not, and I ended up reading most of it. I got to page, oh my gosh, I still have a bookmark in here. I got to page 163, which is pretty much just like 50 pages left, and just had to stop. I posted a review of this on Goodreads, so I'll link that down below for full thoughts, but this book just needs a lot of work. The plot is about a girl who discovers that she has an alien living inside her mind. He committed a murder in his home planet, and so he's being sent there to live as a prisoner inside her mind, and it's about him trying to get free and them having to work together and all that different stuff. And it's not a horrible idea, it just needs a lot of work with the writing. The characters are really flat and need more development. Additionally, this handles domestic violence extremely horribly, and I don't think it's a good representation of that. So that's ultimately why I had to put this down, is because there were just so many descriptions of scenes where the dad was being abusive and it wasn't done accurately, or the reasons behind it were kind of dumb and unrealistic, and I had to stop whenever it got kind of... I did skip to the end to see what happened, and that just seemed kind of far-fetched, so was not a fan of this book, but I gave it 2 stars because I saw the potential in it. It just didn't get to that. After that, I decided to read Never Fade by Alexandra Bracken, which is another book that I've started several times but just haven't been able to get into. My main problem with this book is that this follows a whole new cast of characters from the first one, and I loved the first one because of the characters. I will admit I skim-read a ton of this book. People were telling me this book doesn't get interesting until page 300, and that's accurate. And for a 500-page book to not be interesting until 3/4 of the way through, that's not okay. My main issue with this is that I didn't care about anything. I don't understand the Children's League, I don't care what they're doing, I really don't care about a cure. I don't know if it's me reading this, not a fan of it, or if this just wasn't that great of a book. I really just couldn't bring myself to care about anything happening inside it. Therefore, I only gave it 2 stars. I will not be reading the 3rd one. And the last book I read this month, I actually finished at like 3 a.m. on March 1st, so I don't know if it counts, but I read the majority of it in February, so I'm counting it. And that was The Phantom of the Opera. If you were unaware, this month my friend introduced me to the 2004 Phantom of the Opera movie, and I am obsessed. Since then, I've seen the movie and the 25th anniversary version on Netflix, both about 3 times each. I listened to the soundtrack at least once daily, and my friend told me there was a book and she had an extra copy of it that she let me have, so I read this. I honestly love it to death. This is really different from the play. I mean, obviously, it's a lot less romanticized, and different events do happen. You get a ton of backstory on Raoul and Christine and the Phantom, which is what I enjoyed most about this book. even though it was different, it was still awesome, and it's so dark and tragic, and I still loved the Phantom, even though I don't think you're supposed to like him, but he is my love. This is really pretty because it's written in like 1914 or something like that, so the prose is really pretty. It reads like a classic. I just wish this book would have focused more on Christine and the Phantom rather than Raoul, because it mainly follows Raoul, and the entirety of the book is him being like, why doesn't Christine love me? And other than that, I loved it, so I gave this 4.5 stars. And that is everything I read this month, so I'm sorry these were so long. Next month's wrap-up will not be nearly as long because I'm getting a German exchange student that we're hosting for 2 weeks, therefore I won't have a lot of time to read. I'll still be posting a TBR though, so keep an eye out for that, and otherwise I hope you're having a nice day, and I will see you next time. Bye everyone!